All right, I'm going to get us started again. I want to thank you for joining us. Um, it's an honor to be presenting. My name is Marc Otto, and I'm super excited to have my staff here. We've got Kenzie Judge, I've got Pamela Scott, Amanda Flisher, Kendrick Dial, and our amazing moderator and SCG Strengths Consulting Group operational genius, Signe Whaling, is here with us today too. So we're going to begin. One of the greatest challenges for any thriving company now and in the future is the attraction, development, and retention of staff. A recent Gallup study found that a record amount of Americans are actively looking for a new job. Specifically, 48% of Americans are looking for a different job. Perhaps some of you have heard our recent growing economy, but with unprecedented turnover, called the Great Resignation. People have left jobs in record numbers. Last May, 3.6 million people left their job. In July, it went to 4 million. And in September, 4.4 million people resigned from their jobs, many with no other job to go to. The pandemic has taken a major toll on companies, but the impact of women, children, and people of color highlights the tremendous inequity and harm to specific groups of people more than others. In fact, this year, after noticing trends in our one-to-one meetings, we piloted, thanks to the support of Child Welfare Management, we piloted a new program called CWS, or Child Welfare Services Working Moms. We wanted to support these amazing social workers who care for children and families as a part of their work. In fact, it's not uncommon for a front-end worker to work with over 200 families in 1 year. We wanted to support these working mothers as they support women and children on their caseloads and try to balance what it's like to support their own families and children at home. These groups were we created these groups around specific topics where working mothers could receive support and encouragement, primarily from each other. And we also built a 6-month leadership development series where we explored the intersection between talent and diversity, equity, and inclusion. Meaning we acknowledge that a lot of times learning about our differences sometimes related to race, gender, sexual orientation, ageism, ableism, and on, that these are the things that make us different, and that sometimes conversations and relationships could be better handled if we started with the simple idea that everyone is unique and uniquely talented, and that our differences can and should be leveraged for community well-being and organizational outcomes. We donated over $25,000 in self-care training during the first few months of the lockdown. Our work has always been about caring for employees one-to-one and helping drive overall organizational engagement. But everyone's been impacted by the pandemic as well. Even some have enjoyed working remotely, but a study done recently by Spring Health found that nearly 76% of employees were actively facing burnout. This seminar today, I believe, will tell an important and timely story about how caring for individual employees with their specific and individualized plans for their care and well-being helped preserve over $22 million of talent retention for the County of San Diego Health and Human Services in 4 departments. It turns out that the best business strategy for talent retention is intentionally caring for each of your employees' unique needs and unique talents. In 2005, I had the privilege of being introduced to one of the chief researchers and early co-authors with Don Clifton around the Clifton Strengthsfinder assessment. Chip Anderson came to work with me and my staff at a medium-sized nonprofit here in San Diego. And I asked Chip so many questions as he began to talk about the science and research of developing talent that Chip began to cry. And he cried, and through his tears, he looked up and he said, "Marc, what you don't know," again, this is Chip Anderson in 2005, working with me at the company I was at. He said, "What you don't know is that right now I have a tumor in my chest and the doctors have given me less than 6 months to live." And he started to cry, and he said, "I don't have a lot of time." And he said, "If our research is right, most people will die before they truly know how beautiful they are." And then he said, "I have to spend every second of the remainder of my life helping people know how beautiful they are." Chip died shortly after. I got to spend a year learning from him and working with him. And when he passed away, I always cry. I know my staff are laughing right now. I told them I'd try not to cry. But when Chip passed away, I said, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to spend the rest of my life helping people know how beautiful they are in the same way that Chip did. Last year in 2020, Gallup found that one of the most important factors driving well-being was not vacation days or even self-care, which we really emphasize at the Strengths Consulting Group, but they found one of the primary drivers of employee well-being, overall well-being, was actually their engagement with their jobs. Work engagement, and so our work today will examine what makes a person unique and how we work with individual employees to leverage their unique talents and to work with employees so that they can meet their own needs for well-being. Kind of one principle I'll have you try to remember from this session today, but to remember that your talents are what you both bring and need from life and work. Your talents are what you bring and need from life and work. And so as we meet with individual employees in 2020, we found that 69% of the people we met with individually in 2020 said their meetings with a strengths consultant, the people, my staff on this call today, said were crucial and essential for their continued employment. That amount, again, added to over $22 million in talent retention. When you can't solve problems faster than they happen, caring for the unique abilities of your employees and releasing their creative talents and energy can help large organizations make fast, small, relevant pivots towards progress. By helping employees learn how to use their talents at work and how to use their talents to meet their own psychological and emotional needs, we've helped hundreds of employees live well and thrive. We use two tools, and I'll pull up the PowerPoint here. We use two tools primarily to drive our work. The first tool is, let's see here. The first tool we use is the Gallup Q12 Engagement. And that engagement tool helps us assess how engaged employees at an organization are. This tool helps you figure out what are the primary obstacles to engagement within our department, our organization, and or even team. Furthermore, this tool helps us identify the percentages of three types of employees: those actively engaged, and those are your employees that get up and they're ready to go and they're fired up. They're both fully and psychologically committed to the organization and the success of that organization. The second category is not engaged employees, and those are employees that we call them kind of like clock checkers. They just come in, they do the minimum, they mostly do their job, but they're not going to give you extra energy, passion, time. They're really just clocking in, clocking out. And the third category the Q12 helps us assess is the actively disengaged. And those are your employees that quite honestly are a pain in the you-know-what. We call them sometimes cavers or caves. They're consistently against virtually everything, and they actively come to your organization to sometimes cause pain and strife. The second tool we use is the Clifton Strengthsfinder assessment. And here's a quick screenshot of it. It's either $20 or $50. It's the exact same assessment, but you either get a report on your top 5 or you get a full report of your 34. And this is an assessment that we use. Ironically, a lot of Gallup's consultants use this tool to drive performance at work. It's about really execution. It's about what an employee brings to the organization. We do that. I'm not going to, we do that all the time. But we have a special focus at the Strengths Consulting Group where we actually use the Strengthsfinder backwards, a little bit like the 5 languages of love. When an employee gets their 5 themes back, we remind them that these are the buckets that they need to fill to have more meaning, energy, and resiliency in life, and even be more successful within their roles. As we continue, I'm excited to introduce Kenzie in just a moment. But wanted to give you a few more kind of ahas about how important it is to develop employee talent. Notably, the cost of disengaged or not engaged employees is extremely high, and it's about 18% of annual salary per employee. So for an organization of 7,000 employees, the cost of low engagement, that's the 2 categories of actively disengaged and those just checking in, The cost to an organization of 7,000 employees is $43 million. So having employees that aren't engaged is extremely expensive, and even more expensive to organizations is turnover, which typically costs 1.5 to 2 times the annual salary of an employee. So creating a positive strength-based culture really matters to drive high engagement, because we know that high engagement organizations with a positive strength-based culture are 23% more profitable, 14% more productive, and 66% of their employees on average have high scores in well-being and thriving. Furthermore, high engagement organizations have 81% less absenteeism and 18% less turnover. So as we go forward, I know Kenzie's going to share a little bit more about how we use this tool, how we use these tools, particularly the tool of the Clifton Strengthsfinder, how we use it backwards to help people care and meet their own needs. But pardon me, I know I've thrown out a lot of numbers, but pardon me, 2 more as Kenzie begins to share with us. We know that employees are twice as likely to achieve their wellness and self-care goals if they're specific. So we work really hard towards specificity. Secondly, we know that an employee is 3 times as likely to achieve those goals if those goals involve someone else. Sometimes that other person is a friend or a relative, and sometimes it's your employer's strengths consultant meeting with you monthly to make sure you're doing the things that get the best from and for you for work and life. Again, our goal today is to tell an important and relevant story during a time of the Great Resignation, a story of amazing people doing amazing work to care for the people in our county. We want you to hear how caring for individual employees during this unprecedented time helped 4 departments retain talent, saving the county over $22 million in just 1 year. Kenzie.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Kenzie Judge, and I work for the Strengths Consulting Group here. Thank you so much for joining us. We're really happy to see you today. First of all, I'd like to show you a tool that we use to help our clients. So Marc, if you could pull that up. And we use this tool to help our clients build self-care plans that are unique to their individual strengths. You'll see it here in just a second. At the top, we write a goal for that client. And that could be anything from, I want to spend more time with my family. I want to be better at my job. It could be something specific. And then in the first column on the left there, you'll see we list their top 5 talents or strengths. In the second column, we get very specific about how to keep that bucket full. As Marc mentioned, if you think about your top 5 strengths as 5 buckets, we want to help you keep those buckets as full as possible, as often as possible. And we want to include things in this middle column that are specific and measurable. And then finally, in the third column on the right, we list when those things are going to happen, and we build them in to the client's weekly or monthly schedule to ensure that they're getting regular opportunities to keep their buckets full. You can see an example on there of someone who had a harmony strength, and so in the center they did a garden and with vegetables and spices that they can use for cooking, and they listed out things that they are already ordering and how they're going to build that into their schedule. Now, I'd like to share with you a quick story about a client that I was coaching in the early pandemic. And her top 5 strengths were individualization, relator, input, intellection, and discipline. Today, I want to focus on 2, her intellection and her relator. So at the time, she was living with her husband and her in-laws, and she was working from her bedroom. So as many of us were, she was feeling a bit trapped overall, especially in those early pandemic days. And she was really struggling to get organized with her work tasks and was super afraid of burning out because it was a new job for her. So first, I helped her identify who the people were in her inner circle. Relators tend to have an inner circle of deep, long-term relationships that they can jump into and have for very long periods of time often. And so for her, it was her mom and 5 girlfriends from college and 4 coworkers from a previous job. And then we built a plan for her to see those inner circle people on the regular. So it included one night a week with her mom, one night a week with friends, and then a monthly Zoom with her more long distance friends. And this intentional kind of scheduling of time with her people really bolstered her and helped her feel seen and known during those super isolating early days of the pandemic. So that was one helpful aspect of focusing on one of her strengths. Next, I want to talk about her intellection strength. After her first section with me, I gave her homework to think about her thinking. Intellection is a very thinking strength. And so I wanted her to pay attention to what she was thinking about, when she was thinking about it, what are the topics she was thinking about, and how did she like to think best. So she brought back a lot of data to our second session, and it helped us identify some of her thinking patterns. So she realized that her clearest thinking happens in the mornings. So she just needed time to let her mind wander first thing in the morning. She started going for walks from 6 to 6:30 a.m. and just let her mind wander. And she loved that. She called that her special thinking time. And it was really helpful for her to just kind of plan out the day, think about future stuff. It really didn't matter what she was filling that time up with. Next, she revamped her daily work schedule to really capitalize on her thinking, which was best in the morning. So she put her heavy lifting tasks like detailed writing or deliverable tasks in her morning schedule. And then she reserved her afternoons for things that were a little bit more mindless, like emails or updating the website, that kind of thing. So shifting her work schedule around and getting that special thinking time first thing in the morning really helped capitalize on her best thinking times and structure her days accordingly. So she felt more organized and efficient as a result, and was extremely grateful for some super tangible solutions for building out her relator inner circle and then helping her capitalize on her thinking strengths. So now I'm going to turn it over to Pam, and she's going to tell a story as well.
Good morning. As you heard, my name is Pam Scott, and I would like to tell a story about someone that I had the pleasure of working with during this year. I think many of us would agree that the pandemic has had a significant impact on working moms, but I've been fortunate to work with several moms this year, and this is just one of them. She utilized her strengths during this time frame to increase her confidence, create a work-life balance, and a commitment to self-care. And this was a new mom who was new on the job. She had a 1-year-old, and her top 5 talents are achiever, competition, restorative, learner, and relator. And so we're going to spend time focusing on her achiever strength. I have it as well, so I truly relate to a lot of her struggles. So often people with strong achiever talents, we need to accomplish something meaningful every day. And when I say every day, I mean every day. That's like every work day, weekends, holidays, and maybe even vacations. And so just imagine what it would feel like if you had achiever in your top 5 and you felt like you weren't accomplishing anything on your to-do list. And so when this mom and I first started working together, she was concerned that she was failing at everything. She didn't think she would pass probation. And due to the demands of the job, she felt like she was not being a good mother. And I think that was the hardest part for her. And the mere mention of self-care was anxiety provoking. And so we finally agreed that maybe what we should do is create smaller, softer goals, because tend to make, 10 things on the list and try to check them off, which was not working. And so we talked about the things that she liked to do outside of work, which she liked to walk. She mostly enjoyed spending time with her toddler. She liked listening to music. And so we agreed that she was going to start taking a walk taking the baby, putting him in the stroller, playing a little music while they walked. And we didn't give a specific time, how many times a week, but she tried to take these 15 or 20-minute walks every day. And literally, once she started being successful at that, it led to her seeing that smaller goals might work for her. She started having additional successes in her personal life as well as her career. I'm super happy to say that she passed probation. She's still taking those walks with the baby. He is now 2. And this was an amazing, to me, way of utilizing her strengths. It's not that the job has become less challenging, it's still challenging. But I think what has changed for her is that she's seeing that success in smaller goals. And she told me literally just about a month ago that she feels like she actually can do the job, which she didn't think was possible before. And I just think that's amazing. And it's just one of the exciting things that we get to do in this role. So I'd like to turn it over to Amanda to share one of her stories.
Thank you, Pam. And hello, good morning, everyone. I'm Amanda Flischer, one of the strengths consultants and trainer here with us. And so the story I'm going to be sharing is with a worker I've actually been working with for almost 3 years. Lovely and always. And I've gotten the pleasure. One of the great things about our job is we get to meet people at the beginning of their careers with the county and in their social working jobs. And so I met her early on. She was excelling at all levels. This was pre-pandemic. She was on top of her game, had graduated with honors in her master's program, was doing really well. And as you can tell by her strength, she has achiever, learner, input. So that just, that's where she thrived. She also has relator and empathy. Well, then a pandemic hit, her caseloads exploded, and she was feeling really overwhelmed on multiple fronts. So when we sat down and talked and tried to, kind of get through everything, we realized that there was a few things going on. First thing was, as Pam had mentioned earlier, achiever is the strength that really needs to have a game plan and needs to know and wants to cross off things all day long. So this particular worker had been excelling before the pandemic, had been excelling in school, had been excelling in her cases and with her families, and really was not feeling that anymore and was really overwhelmed. She was feeling same thing. Can I do this anymore? This feels a lot. I'm just spending a lot of time circling, just going around in circles with her work. The other thing was she loves to spend time learning about her families. And when she had that many cases and that much going on, it was really hard for her to spend enough time. So she was spinning out of control, trying to learn as much as she could about her cases. The other thing was she missed her team. She was at home, she was alone, she didn't know where to turn. She just, everyone would jump on a Zoom call maybe a couple times a week just for meetings. She'd see her supervisor, and she was just really, really missing that, which takes a toll on a relator and someone with high empathy. So she was really kind of just drowning, if you will, in multiple areas of her strengths. So what we decided was that she really needed to get connected back to her achiever and really understand and put a plan actually in motion for her learner and input. And then find ways that she can connect again with her families, with her teammates, with her supervisor, and other ways. So what we came up with was that each week she would spend about 30 to 45 minutes, maybe sometimes an hour, depending upon how crazy her week was, and get organized. And what we mean by this is like really in the work. Like she took case by case, went through every single one and said, what do I need to do? What do I need to do or where do I need to go? What do I actually need to learn here? What do I need to do with my clients? What do I need to tell my supervisor? How do I need help? Where can I ask for help? Because that was also something she was drowning with, was asking for help, because she didn't know what to ask for help with anymore. So, because she knew everyone was busy, right? We all were really busy in the pandemic. So in that, she decided to spend this 30 to 45 minutes each week. She picked a day and she stuck with it. So I think it was like Tuesday mornings at 9. She would spend that time. She would go through each case. She'd write a checklist for each case. She would then have a game plan for her learner input, what she needed to learn, what she needed to get done. She had a game plan for checking off things each week. And then she had a really great plan for when she went to her supervisions with her supervisor. And even in her supervision meetings, She was able to be more organized, spend more quality time with her supervisor, and then had more time with her teammates and can connect on completely different levels. All of this being said, it rolled and snowballed. And now she's been doing this for a year and a half. She has far more time to spend with her now fiance. She's preparing for a wedding. She has a lot more free time than she thought she could. She was spending a lot of time in overtime and just kind of spinning. And now she feels like she can be far more organized, far more efficient when she just spends a little time getting organized and knowing what to do on the back end. So this no longer was just affecting her work, right? She was able to actually make effects in her personal life as well. The other thing was her teammates started catching on to this. And so she started bringing them into her planning meetings each week. So there's a few of her coworkers that now join her on Zoom, and they together each week just plan, but they're together like this on Zoom. And then they say, how do you all feel? And they connect with each other, and then they get back to work, and they're so much more efficient. So this is just part of the things that we get to do as consultants with strengths. And it's just fantastic. And we love seeing this, like Marc said, the self-care. And it's not only affecting them at work, it's affecting them with their personal and professional lives. So I'm going to hand it over to Kendrick now, and he's going to tell his story.
Thank you, Amanda. Good morning, everyone. So the story I would like to tell is about a worker who had been in her role for about 2 to 3 years when we connected. Her strengths were learner, input, developer, achiever, and responsibility. And one of the things I always like to share when starting sessions is how much sometimes this coaching sessions might feel like work therapy because the energy that it takes to show up in your personal life takes away from the energy that it takes to show up in your professional space, and vice versa. But subsequently, it can also give to that space as well. And so with her, she was also happened to be going through a divorce. So she was feeling overwhelmed. She was feeling stuck. She questioned if she was actually doing the best work by her families because she was dealing with so much. And so considering she had developer, we decided to turn that inward. And I asked her to think about somebody, if someone else was going through all of these things that she was experiencing, what would she tell them? Because being a developer, she's always looking out for other people, how to support, how to show up. And so we understood that we needed to get her to do that for herself. And so based on that, she decided to get in therapy. She decided to kind of take a step back and stop putting so much pressure on herself. And one of the other things she also recognized in that space of feeling stuck was that she didn't feel like she was, adding to who she was. And so we also added a space where in the morning she would just take 15 minutes or so to read a book or an article or something that she felt like added to her experience personally and as a worker. And so through these particular spaces, it just led to more fulfillment, more engagement, and a sense of more accomplishment, which also helped out our achiever, but also recognizing that we needed to turn down the achiever so she wasn't putting that level of pressure on herself. So just like everyone else, it's an amazing opportunity that we get to experience. We get to walk along this journey with everyone and explore how can we show up in different ways and tweak the dynamics of how we are to show up in the world and be effective for everyone else, because it not only impacts how we impact ourselves, but it also trickles down to the families, it trickles over to our co-workers and those that we get to support as well. So on that note, I will turn it back over to Marc.
There we go. Thanks. We were going to do breakout groups here, but after watching some of the sessions yesterday, I was sort of surprised how many people cut out of the session for breakout groups. So, and I know there's some introverts that are like, I hate breakout groups, but I want to learn. So I called an audible last night, and we are going to end with breakout groups. So hang in there. We're almost done. But what we wanted to do is, these are the questions. So skip those. I'm going to just close this up real fast, then we'll go back to groups if you guys want. So, but I just want you to know that only about 17% of the workforce report actively using their strengths every day. And it's not that we think that 83% of employees are in the wrong job. We actually believe that 83% of employees are underutilizing their current talents within their current job. We know that employees that focus on their strengths are 6 times as likely to be successful in their role and 3 times as likely to say they have a high quality of life. And the story I wanted to tell quickly is and we have the privilege of working at all levels within an organization, but the story I wanted to tell briefly did happen before the pandemic, but it was a underperforming office assistant. And we had an underperforming office assistant that had a stack of background checks that he needed to go through, approve, enter, and file. And that stack was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And so I met with this employee, and he felt very disengaged from his job. He had the strength of restorative. And if you know about that strength, restoratives love to get lost solving a problem. But often restorative is what we call a core theme, meaning it's a theme that has to be a part of your career and your life's work. It's not a bucket that you can fill in your spare time. It's a bucket that has to be filled with the primary work of your life. Restoratives need to solve compelling problems. Otherwise they feel disengaged. Everybody got that? Restoratives need to solve compelling problems. Otherwise they feel disengaged. So I got permission from this office assistant supervisor to take this office assistant to, and this is in the Child Welfare Services Department, to take this employee to the Polinsky Children's Center cook-off. And I'm not sure they do it anymore, but at this time they had a annual tradition of having the kids that often have been abused, neglected, or don't have anybody to care for them. They'll sometimes go to Polinsky Children's Center, and they would, Chef Itza would hold this competition and see who could make the best meal, and they had a lot of kind of sometimes bigwigs there that would sort of taste and score the different meals that these kids that often needed extra love and support and care that they would make. And so I took this office assistant to that, and we just laughed and had the funnest time. And on the way back to the office, he goes, "Why did you do that?" And I'll never forget it. I kind of let it be an awkward pause there for a second, and I said, "You know what? Those kids, we need to find homes for those kids. Those kids really need to be with families." And that pile of, and he just completed the pile on my desk. And I said, "Yeah, that pile on your desk represents families that might be able to care for those kids." And he said, "Marc, I got it." Pile went away, stayed away, because his restorative knew that those weren't just pieces of paper, but they represented families that were willing to care for children. So I want to go back, and I want to end on that story, a story of stories, and go back to, or go forward to, let's see, I think it's forward to questions, and end it there and see what questions might have before we go into breakout groups. So the pool is open, the table is open. What questions might you have? And Signe, if you see some online, feel free to call those out as well if any came through Feedloop. Yeah, feel free to ask questions. No questions? Signe, were there any questions that came through Feedloop? All right, well, we'll probably just keep going then, right? So
Marc, I just got a question.
Okay.
What trends do you think we can expect to see, and how can we prepare for them?
Yeah, I mean, I probably need a little more context to that. But we certainly in employee surveys, we see employees asking for more flexibility in their work. Right now, employees are enjoying the flexibility to work remotely, but we're finding that the more new employees work in office around supervisors and coworkers, we're finding that they're more likely to be successful. that often one of the critical factors that helps people in positions of social services help us retain that talent is often the degree to which they build relationships and friendships with each other. And so some of the spaces we're trying to create is where they build those relationships, because we know the more that groups sort of bond together, the more we tend to retain those groups together. But trends, yeah, I think I've loved the keynote speakers, in what they've had to share, but I think things are going to continue to probably stay fast and stay complicated. And I think that's why taking care of ourselves and understanding each other and how to work together is going to be more important than ever. So I hope I got part of that answer. Yeah, no. Any other questions?
Marc, I'm gonna go and throw one out there, and you may have kind of answered this one, but I just kind of want to maybe ask it in a slightly different way. Are there any type of shifts that organizations may need to make that may be beneficial for them to make? Regarding this whole new space and these dynamics that we've explored, and or are there also things that individuals may or could do differently in this new space?
Yeah, well, I'll give two. Thanks, Kendrick. I'll give two questions at that. One is, we try to remind people every day in our work that about 76% of an employee's engagement is their boss. So, and it's how the boss manages and the relationship you have with your boss. So one thing we're encouraging employees all day long is to find great bosses, to follow great bosses, to become a great boss, and that it's better to have a bad job under a great boss than it is to have your dream job under a bad boss. So I think developing people to lead well, Gallup says that only 2 out of 10 people, or 20% of people, have natural talents to lead others. That should quite frighten many people. So we want to do better than 20%, and then I think employees are going to be far more engaged, energized, successful if they're leveraging their talents within their roles. Jobs and companies are getting more complicated, not less. Things are less siloed, more matrixed, and the irony of that is employee engagement goes up the more a team is matrixed, and job clarity goes down the more a team is matrixed. So we're going to continue to need to know who each person is on the team, what they bring, what they need, what they do well, what they don't do well, where you can trust those employees, where you kind of got to watch them or manage them. And then Kendrick, I would say large organizations need to close the back door. When organizations have an open back door, talent comes in and quickly figures out this is not the place they're going to grow or develop or promote. And so closing that back door as you open the front doors, a massive deal. And I've been on some business calls for San Diego County. By and large, employers are scrambling like crazy to find talent. There really is a talent war right now. I mean, most companies I've heard of or talked to in San Diego, they have HR. They're pulling HR, every position of HR, and they're putting them into recruiting right now to try to get the people they need to run their businesses. So, there's lots of opportunity there for movement. But we always say that the best sort of ingredient to success is to know who you are and who you aren't, to understand who others are, who they aren't, and to leverage that awareness, self-awareness, and other awareness in what you do and how you bring that to your life and home every day. So kind of know who you are and who you aren't, find a great boss at a company with a compelling mission, and for organizational leaders listening on this call, close that back door and find ways to retain your talent.
So I'm gonna just hope that I'm not the only one with this question. Can you just explain the back door just a little bit more plainly, just so we know exactly what we're saying?
I mean, the back door is really your turnover, right? And your front door is your hiring. So you can look at rates of hiring to rates of people leaving. But I was actually at a conference 4 years ago when Helen Robbins-Meyer was on a panel, and she was asked, what's the greatest challenge you see government facing in the future? And I'll never forget it because I yelled yes, and I got really embarrassed because people around me heard me. But she said, I think the greatest challenge for government and nonprofit organizations in the future is the attraction, development, and retention of talent. And I was like, that is exactly right. So, we need to. I think part why our team wanted to do this call is to just make it absolutely clear that caring for the uniqueness of someone really can make a difference at home and work, and matters. But the back door, that's going to be your turnover. That's when people leave your company.
Got you. And this last question, comment, if you will, I just wanted to share in regards to we often talk about, when you talk about leadership, one of the things that come with that is support, right? Workers feeling supported, feeling heard, acknowledged, etc. So in regards to what that looks like, there are many times when supervisor, leader feels like I'm doing what I can to support you, but the workers feeling like I don't feel supported. So what would you say in regards to how to go about, getting through that murky water, getting to some clarity?
Yeah, no, I think, can you repeat it real fast? Sorry, Kendrick, I was looking at the clock. I'm so embarrassed. I was trying to make sure I did the timing.
I guess I'm ultimately asking, how do we get on the same page of support? Like when leaders are saying they're supporting the workers, and the workers are like, I don't feel supported, and vice versa. So what can be done to kind of get everybody on the same page?
Well, I really hate to sound like a commercial, but I want you to know that this is sincere. I really believe that leadership begins with self-care. And sometimes, and I often find management brilliantly caring and compassionate for their employees, but the employee's not feeling it. And recently our team had a retreat where we talked about how much cynicism we're encountering amongst employees, kind of feeling like management's checked out or they don't care, when actually quite the opposite is true. And we found that cynicism was one of 3 primary indicators of burnout. So I think one of the things we got to tackle along this way is burnout. Sometimes people are needing more from leaders than leaders are capable to give. And sometimes that's a case where you need your buckets more full. I always tell people, if you're going home every day and your buckets are empty, you're doing something wrong at work. And if you come to work every day and your 5 buckets are empty, you're doing something wrong at home. So I really think helping people take care of themselves, knowing how to play to their strengths, how to work with others, that should turn down a little bit of some of the need that some employees have from a perception of management that doesn't care when management cares. And when management doesn't care, those sometimes are organizations that deserve the turnover they have. I know that maybe I'll not be so brutal. I'll sort of just leave that there. But Kendrick, you're asking great questions as always.
Gotcha. And we also have a question from Michael Miller. He says the workforce across industries has become more mobile. Many options, including virtual work, are becoming the expectation and the norm. Some of the soft skills for connection in the workplace are lost when working remotely. Interactions tend to be more streamlined to the specific task-oriented projects, and meetings with less space for informal connections that occur when working in person with others in the organization. Are there any tips on recreating that feeling of connectedness in virtual environments?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Miller. He's great people, by the way, and I love you coming. In fact, Mike Miller is kind of the perfect example of someone with amazingly high emotional intelligence. He's absolutely brilliant with people in person, and I'm gonna say I think that we can get too lazy with technology. I think that technology could be overused in the future. I think we need to see each other again as safely as possible. I don't want to say anything irresponsible, but I really think Zoom will never replace certain meetings that should take in person. And there's a lot of meetings that take place in person that could have been done by Zoom and be 15 minutes, right? So we need to be wise in how we use technology moving forward. But for me, staring at a screen does very little to change someone's mind or behaviors.
So
In fact, I
Mark,
think, yeah,
I want to add a little layer because I think one
please.
of the things that we forget with this technology is when we didn't have it, and when we created ability to have a phone call, and how we were able to just relish hearing somebody's voice. And so to that space, I think it's also about how do we make the time and intention in those meetings. If we even spent like a good first 10, 15 minutes of the meeting giving opportunities for people to connect, to simply, understand who each other were on somewhat of a more personal level, that can be interweaved. And I think it's about how we also take the time to make that a something that we choose to do, as opposed to let's get right down to business so we can get up out, which is also a challenge because when you think about people's work and how do you value that space, like some folks are just, I want to come to work, get done, or get in this meetings because I got cases and clients, etc. So it's also about how do we begin to value that space, within our teams, within our units, to help each other see the benefit of being able to connect in that level, to know that, now it isn't just about coming to and getting the business done. I'm connected with somebody, so when I do have a challenge, when I do have a problem, I'll feel a little bit more comfortable about reaching out and picking up the phone to get that call or shooting a text message or email, and it's not this stranger on the other side, if you will. So I think it's also about how we choose to make those connections happen, even in this virtual space.
Man, Kendrick, I'd rather listen to you than me. So this is so good. Thanks, folks. I really appreciate you. So I think what we'll do, at the risk of changing my plan, but sticking to the plan, meaning I switched the Q&A with the breakout groups because I was seeing in some of the other groups how many people would like sort of click off or disappear or not join a group. So that's your warning, everyone. We're going to do about 10 minutes of groups, if that's okay. And then really that's going to end. And it's a timely transition from Kendrick talking about, and Mike even talking about, how do we engage or connect over our online vehicles, and Meeser's saying we need to connect more. I think we're going to give you an opportunity to connect with each other now, if you will, for just about 10 minutes. So I want to show you the questions real fast. Some of you may want to pull out your phone even and take a quick screenshot of this. So you're like, what are the questions? And we're going to keep it really simple today. We were hoping you would learn a bit from us, but we were hoping that you would learn and meet someone else on the call, which is a typical strengths consulting thing. We're always teaching, but then trying to connect people to each other, to better each other. But these are two questions. In fact, I think Kendrick helped us. Actually, the whole team helped craft it, but Kendrick's always helped us craft things. But what have you learned about yourself during the pandemic? And what did you learn about how to care for yourself and others during these days? So if you want, feel free to take a screenshot with your phone, take a shot of this. We're actually going to enter it into the breakout groups. We've got 10 minutes. We have no strong close to it. We'll come back, but it's just a have a great day close. And we're going to move into those groups now. So there'll be about 5 in each group. And let's stop there. Breakout groups and have fun. I hope you've enjoyed this call, and I hope you meet someone awesome. And I hope you take a chance to share what you've been learning during these days about yourself, and also about how to care for yourself and others. The groups will begin in just a second. So feel free to click to join a group. I am not going to do what I saw some other presenters do and automatically assign you. So if you want to hang out in this sort of awkward space, you're welcome to hang out here as well. So. And if any of my staff want to tell me what to do, I'm open to that. So if there's something I need to know or do, please tell me. I trust you guys.
I would just say if anyone's still here and didn't want to join a group or has questions for us in a more private setting, that might be great too. So I know there was lots of questions, I'm sure, about your own strengths or, how do you bring this back to your own company? That kind of stuff would be totally worth asking us too.
Five-minute warning, guys. Just want to let you know.
There we go. Just want to welcome you back as we close, and thank you for joining us so much. Thanks. Hopefully you had fun, learned some stuff, and I hope even as much that you maybe met somebody you like on the call today. But just quiet little brag for just caring about the uniqueness of people. But 91% of the people that met one-on-one with a strengths consultant said that it helped their overall mental, physical, and/or emotional health. 69% reported that meeting one-on-one with a strengths consultant was crucial for their continued employment. 90% said that meeting one-on-one with a strengths consultant made them feel more engaged at work, and 81% reported that focusing around their strengths helped them be more successful in their position. Again, thank you so much for being on this call, and have a wonderful day. Be strong. Your strengths are what you need and bring in life and work. Have a wonderful day.